So everybody, you are in for a treat. You are in for meeting one of my funniest friends I think I've ever had, who consistently makes me laugh with every conversation we have, whether in person or on the phone, lately and more on the phone. But I'm very grateful to know David Zaslav. He calls himself a jazz comic. If you don't believe it, man, you should hear some of his jazz and then see some of his comedy. It's a combination not to be missed. So welcome, David.
Hey, good to be here. You know, everybody introduces me because they ask me, how do you want to be introduced? I always say jazz comedian. And I'm not, I love jazz and I love comedy. And there's something similar about both. And then there's times when I can actually, like I do a jazz impression of the flight of the bumblebee. I did it on the Gong Show.
You got to keep doing that. I have to have 30 seconds of it for TikTok.
Got a consolation prize. They gave me a year's supply of cough drops, and 6 months later they sent me another year's supply of cough drops. The show was in reruns, and I was getting residuals.
Apparently. Oh my God! See what I mean, guys? There we go. All right, so we have a full plate today of interesting topics and potential things we'll talk about. The first that I was looking at here is being Jewish in the Deep South.
Shalom, y'all. My opening line is, no, I'm not Jeffrey Epstein. And that gets a laugh in some of the most rural, southern, Deep South dive bars where there's no Jews. I don't know if they've ever met a Jew, but all I just say is, no, I'm not Jeffrey Epstein, and it creates incredible laughter. And I didn't even come up with that. I was in one of these no teeth, smoke, no masks, drinking, and this lady called me over after I did my bit, and she said, "You look like that Jew. You look like Jeffrey Epstein." And I thought it was funny, so I just said it at the next time I was on stage, and it was a colossal win. Just wherever I went, where you wouldn't think. Oh, and then I did a bit in I would call it the Improv of Greenville, and I talked to
Greenville.
Huh?
The Improv of Greenville. I never would have guessed.
Well, it's not an improv, but if you were to compare the two, there's actually no comparison. But I just did it anyhow. But it compares in the quality of the comedy. It doesn't even compare there. Anyhow, I did a show, and I mentioned I was Jewish and living in Liberty, which is where they filmed Deliverance, by the way.
There you have it.
And I said there's no Jews in Liberty. And at the end of the show, this guy came up to me and said, "You don't look like Jeffrey Epstein." He says, "I was born in Liberty. My whole family I live in Liberty, and my whole family, and we need more Jews in Liberty." And I couldn't have asked for a more beautiful welcome.
Oh my God, that's great.
The complete opposite of what I predicted the situation would be in Liberty. Population 2,500, I think.
500. There you go. Yeah.
I have my own septic system. I'm living in the country.
My goodness, you are. Yeah.
And we have 4 chickens now.
4 chickens.
Four chickens in the backyard. We got my wife got her first egg, not her egg, the chicken's egg.
Chicken's egg, yeah, that's easier to eat. Yeah.
Much.
Yeah. So One of the things that I know everybody's waiting to hear about is tell us about the chauffeur versus the trumpet.
They're very similar. The chauffeur's harder to play because a lot less of a mouthpiece. But the source of the music is the same. You know, I thought about that, and of course the sound is totally different. The thing I love about the shofar is that King David did those naked dances, those crazy naked dances in Jerusalem, and he did it to the tune of a lot of drumming and shofars, Asian flutes and harps. I think the harps might have been drowned out. I can't imagine
I can't
anybody
imagine.
hearing.
No, no,
Huh?
not with drums and a shofar.
No, that's what I read. Leon Uris wrote the book about it, and that's where I learned about it. And he did these dances to remind people to just don't be afraid of your body. Don't be embarrassed to be yourself. Just be yourself. Go crazy, and he did that. He took his clothes off in Jerusalem, and the band is playing, and they're blasting and drumming away. And sometimes I take out my shofar and I have the audience beat on the table to make believe, you know, I'm teaching them about shofar. It's really pretty cool. And then King David did these dances. And one day, now I heard this story from a reliable source, a woman who knew the Torah and a lot of literature better than I do. She said King David came home and his wife, which must have been Bathsheba, said to him, listen, you gotta stop the dancing or I'm going to leave. And he said, well, leave. You know, you know, he didn't want to stop the dancing. I don't blame him.
Yeah. Wow.
He's
Wow.
yeah, he knew who he was.
Yeah. Yeah. So this section, maybe I might be sharing it with kids. So just a word up about that. Not sure. So tell me a little bit about your relationship to sugar is.
It's a bad one. I love things that are bad for me. You know, from sugar to women. You know, it's like,
I'll cut that out for your wife.
well, she knows that you don't have to cut that out. No, the sugar addiction is for me was very serious. After I quit all my other addictions, the sugar thing came up, and I gained like 75 pounds eating chocolate and icing. I was crazy about icing.
Icing. Yeah. What's not to love about icing?
Well, what's not to love is that sugar makes me mean. I don't. I tell this to other people that other people don't seem to have this reaction to sugar, but I get nasty. I get really negative. Yeah.
Can you give us an impression of you being on sugar?
I get men. I don't get you. I say nasty things. I become very negative in my head, and my head is sometimes negative already. You know, that's the big battle, is to not have negative thinking.
Right.
But sugar increases my negative thinking.
That makes sense.
Not good.
Yeah. Sugar increases my number on the scale dramatically.
Yeah, I could do that, especially when it's combined with chocolate and so much of the bagels turn into sugar. From what I understand, you would know better than me, but bread and pasta, it all turns into sugar once it's in your mouth.
Yeah, there's a whole series of nastinesses that happen there that probably would be a different conversation, but yeah, that makes sense.
I gotta say one more thing. They say sugar is just as addictive as heroin, which means NutraSweet is methadone.
I'd hate to think what stevia is.
Stevia is just good for it, from what I hear. I haven't found anything bad I haven't heard about anybody overdosing on stevia.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I could just see an outbreak with monkeypox and stevia, you know, kind of teaming up on people, you know.
The only thing I think about stevia, the only problem for me with stevia is the white powder, so I rub it in my gums.
You could call that a leftover. Your relationship to your spirituality, anything that you have that you want to talk about with that?
Uh, I really have nature is my God. You know, whenever someone says God, I just think nature. And the horrible thing for me is to realize how many religions separate us from God, from nature.
Mm,
By they do that by trying to make people more important than animals and people more important than trees. They we're not a we're a part of nature. We're not a part of nature. We're not
apart
apart
from,
from it.
yeah,
Yeah, I know.
no, that makes sense. That
So
makes sense.
we really have lost that connection as we've become more civilized. And I used to say, this might be a little bit adult. I used to, as an animal,
Uh-huh.
I try to make myself look very civilized.
Yes.
I go to civilized looking places to meet another civilized looking human being, so we can go home and be animals. No,
Nice.
nature is so important. Nature is where I connect, and a lot of people do.
So if I'm ever driving in your area and see a guy with his arms around a tree, I just know that you're in a religious ecstasy. Is that, should I go with that?
No.
They're dead. Okay. Yeah, that's good.
Ready to be transitioned into another form.
Mhm. And your take on addiction, any like kind of stuff?
Everything is addiction. Here's the biggest thing I could say about addiction is that whatever I'm addicted to it because it it transcends my negative thinking.
Mm,
So that's why negative thinking is so annoying and so painful that to take something that eliminates negative thinking for a certain amount of time, and then of course whatever is taken, be it a drug or coffee or sugar or sex with the wrong person or just all uh, it eliminates negative thinking. But if then of course the negative thinking comes back, so you want to drown it out again, so you do the same substance again, and it's just a circular obsessive series of behaviors that could go on for years and years until I find a different way to stop the negative thinking
mm.
rather than a substance.
What are some ways that are like go-to ways for you right now to stop the negative thinking?
Music for me, drumming is one. Music for me is one. Meditating is another one. Although in meditating, I can often have negative thoughts, but if I meditate long enough, I can actually begin to ignore them and get more in touch with my breathing. And that puts me in the moment, which is really where most intelligent people would like to live.
Right.
But of course, it's impossible because there's never enough time to live in the moment all the all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm constantly thinking, well, the moment I thought I was in a second ago is gone now, and now the moment I'm thinking about now is gone now. So
Yeah,
sometimes
right.
that one kind of gets to me a little bit. Um, yeah, your relationship or your thoughts on 12 steps, 12-step programs, whatnot.
For me, they've been very helpful. For me, that they're not religious. I've always had a problem with religions, so the 12 steps have been a very helpful guide for help me decide. Well, first I learned that my brain was crazy. I didn't really get that, and I know now that some of the thoughts in my head are not my thoughts. They're in the collective unconscious, and they're really bad. But they're not mine, so it helped me ignore them.
Mhm.
Uh, so the 12 steps have been very helpful. No judgment. No, it doesn't cost anything unless you want to donate. People are very helpful. They're very loving, and everybody is suffering from the same negative thinking.
Mm.
That's the biggest thing that I've heard in rooms. Everybody hates themselves or feels not good enough. Feeling not good enough is the nicer way to say it.
Right, right. One of one of the things that happened for me recently was um, something called a sponsoring thought. Have I talked to you about that at all ever?
I think you mentioned that. Yeah, sponsoring thought.
Yeah, it's the idea that we get a thought when we're quite young and we're hurt by mommy or daddy, and the universe changes from pleasant and supportive to tell me or what do you think of the idea of what does it look like for you right now to be living a good life? What does that entail? What does that look like?
Full of love. Just, I never understood love, but full of love. Just so much love. And there's still so much mishigash, insanity in my head. But when I go back to being loving and allowing myself to be loving and ignore all my paranoia, my fears, wanting to destroy things, all the negativity in my head, and I just go to a place that's the complete opposite. Like in 12-step programs, they teach what's the word? An opposite behavior, the contrary action.
Contrary action, yes.
Yeah, do contrary action to what I would normally think, and ignore what I would normally think, and do the exact opposite. And it always turns out, I go, oh my God, I was wrong.
Right.
Oh my God, I was so wrong. My brain was giving me such bad information. I came to such poor conclusions for myself, conclusions that would lead me to be alone and miserable. And for me to accept that I really don't want to be alone. And I used to think that, I'll be alone. I can do it on my own, and I don't trust anybody. Or, if someone loved me, then what would they give me rather than what would I give them?
Right.
Just a very egocentric lifestyle. Loving is so much more refined way to look at life.
That makes all kinds of sense, and especially given that you're married and have a child. I'm going to talk about either or both of those.
Well, there's the source of the love right there. It's just, I finally allowed myself to be loved by someone who was loving. I had been with women before who really wanted to love me, but there was no way I would let them. I wasn't ready to allow that to happen. I didn't know that could happen. I didn't come from that kind of place. Right. So, starting to get older and understanding a little bit more about love and loving yourself, which sounds so damn corny to me. Just so corny.
Sounds so trite.
It's so accurate.
It's true.
So accurate.
Sometimes the things we say all the time, we forget how much they actually really do mean. Some of the expressions, some of the cliches that we say, love yourself first, that kind of stuff. Right. Despite how corny they sound, there's such a deep truth to a lot of them.
Well, it's totally true. Love, you can't. People told me I had to learn to love myself before I could love somebody else. I thought, oh, that could take forever. That.
Clearly.
I didn't even understand it. I had no idea of loving yourself. I just drifted through life. I did some great things, but I just drifted through life without thinking about that. If someone liked me, well, then I would hang out with them, and we would be physical, and we would buy each other gifts, and it didn't go any further than that.
Yep. Yeah.
Now I know I'm in love because I don't want to lose what I have. I never cared about losing whatever I had before until I lost it. Then it would fall to pieces.
Right.
Because I didn't know what I was. I didn't know what was keeping me alive. Mm-hmm. But now I do.
Is there anything else that you'd like to say to our audience that would be either inspirational, maybe for a kid thinking about a career with comedy or music, or why don't we start with that? Yeah.
Well, I think kids should. You should just let kids be kids and let them do what seems to make them the happiest. That's what I did when I chose my career, which was originally music, and I went through a very dark moment, my first divorce, I decided to look at what was I doing when I was 4 years old that made me happy. I was writing songs, and I was 30, 36 or 35 at the time, and I said, okay, I'm going to be a musician at the age of 35.
Mhm.
And that's what I did. And then I realized, oh my God, I play 10 instruments. I really didn't know that could happen.
Mm.
But so pick something that makes you happy and allows you to not think. Just in Judaism, in the Torah, it says somewhere in the Torah that the essence of Judaism is to be spontaneously happy, spontaneously joyful. That's the word they use.
Mhm.
And that's a beautiful, if you can teach your kid to do that, that's a miracle. Because when's the last time you saw a spontaneously joyful Jew? Not too often.